Hi guys, welcome back to another video finally of making another art doll. So this is a little fox art doll that I sort of modified. It was one of my older dolls that I wasn't quite happy with, and I modified it to what I originally wanted to do. Now I cast this with some glass eyes inside, so it is cast in resin and it has glass eyes cast inside of the resin. I do have a tutorial in my shop if you want to know how I do this. You can find it at creaturesinart.com in my shop section under tutorials. And once that is all done, I then start painting all the areas that are going to be visible underneath the faux fur. So that's usually around the eyes, nose and the mouth, and I'm using a acrylic water-based paint, nothing special. The brand is Chromacryl, and you can find something in your local store that's similar and pretty cheap. So I usually prime my pieces before I paint it as well, and I use it's a poster, like a canvas primer, but it works really, really well on polymer clays and resins because resin is quite slippery and uncertain the surface. So the canvas primer just sort of primes the surface and gives it a bit of a tooth for it to adhere to, and I find the paint sticks a little bit better once I've primed the pieces. I'm using a plastic ball and socket armature for this piece, so it is really sturdy. It is one of my larger, the middle size armature, and also the smaller size armature for the leg area, just to give it a bit more strength. So I'm using a combination of a couple of different faux furs for this one. So I'm using this bright orange faux fur, and fun fact is when I work with this faux fur and then I look somewhere else, like the color messes with my eyes a little bit, and it's just something, this is the only faux fur that's ever done that, because I guess because it's so vibrant. And yes, it's really nice color though, and I think it really works well for the Twilight fox that I've been making. So you can have a look here, it's quite long, and yeah, it's quite long and kind of thick, and yeah, perfect for what I was going for. So I'm going to go and cut everything out and start sewing it all together. For this one I am doing a needle felted body using some polyfill, and I'm going to be sewing the pieces on together. And the sewing process was quite long because all of the pieces were like different sizes and different colors, so I had to use different pieces of fabric, but I think it turned out really well. So I am needle felting onto my armature. I have some videos on my Patreon if you want to know a little bit more about how I needle felt these things, and I using the pipe cleaners around the armature because it gives something for the polyfill to stick to. I find it is pretty slippery if I don't have the pipe cleaners on them, and yeah, it just works a whole lot better to grab that polyfill. And I'm just using a single needle to needle felt the body. I find it works pretty easy than those you know, dual or 3 layered ones that you can buy, but yeah, nothing fancy here, just a really rough body shape with the polyfill before I put the faux fur on. Alright, so I'm testing out a couple of colours on a scrap piece of fur for the ombre effect on the transition between the orange and the purple. So I'm using some reds and some pinks just to see what I like better for that transition. And back to the sewing, so lots of sewing. So I use a lattice stitch to sew all of my pieces together. I have a video on how I do the lattice stitch on my YouTube as well, so if you don't know how to do it, check that out. And I'm using a good quality thread as well, because when you pull you want the thread to be quite strong and not snap. So the fur that I wanted to use for this one was sort of clumped together, so I ended up brushing it out to get the same texture of the fur. Luckily the fur is actually just as long as the orange one, so it worked out really well. And then I can start sewing those pieces together and sort of transitioning those two fabrics together and making it look more like a seamless transition. Once that's done, I can glue all of the pieces up together. So I'm using a tacky fabric glue for all of the pieces that I'm gluing. That's including the faux fur that I stick on the face. And once that's done, I can just start adding the little details around the face and that transition color that I was doing. So I did the same sort of thing on the face as well. And I decided to do like a mask with purple on the muzzle and a transition to the orange as well. And then always when you're using paints on faux fur, brush it out while it's wet, otherwise it sticks together and it's really difficult to comb out. So that's a little handy tip if you're using faux fur and want to add some paint. Always brush it out while it's wet and while it's drying as well. So adding some tiny little fine details at the end, that is basically going over the pieces that I painted at the start and just bringing out all those features again once the faux fur has been applied. And then it's pretty much done. So this one has been snapped up. It was snapped up pretty quickly. I do have some more dolls in my shop, so check that out. I also offer payment plans, so just send me a message if you're interested in something like that. But really like the way this one turned out. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. I really appreciate it. And I also check me out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I have new things on TikTok all the time. And my shop, gridgeandthat.com. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye.